Hello, it's Peter Cook with the North Berrien Historical Museum, and welcome to our third and final installment of our fruit harvest season series. Today we'll be talking about the fruit picked, packed, and shipped. We've touched on this a little bit in some of our previous episodes, but today we're going to get down to the real nitty-gritty. So if you are ready, I believe I hear the final departure rolling in. All aboard the North Berrien History Train! In our last video, we talked about the fruit grown in southwest Michigan and its history of being sold to markets in Chicago, Illinois, and Milwaukee, Wisconsin. But how exactly did the fruit grown here find its way safely to these places? Well, that brings us to harvest time, what this series is all about, what it's been leading up to. Harvest time is the period when farmers gather up their crops. With fruit, it must be picked at the right time, which for peaches is the summer and apples the fall. You might think that picking a peach is easy, but you have to know how to recognize not only when a peach is just ripe enough to pick, but you have to know not to impress too hard with your thumb and not to use your fingernails, or else you're going to bruise it. You can attach one of these contraptions, a fruit harvester basket. You can attach them to like a long handle, reach up into the trees. These fingers at the top will pluck the fruit out. You could probably put a cushion down in here, something so the fruit won't bruise as it falls into the basket. And that's a more modern way of doing it, but let's take a look at this old artist's rendering of a day in the orchard and see what kind of contraptions they're using. Ladders. Aren't those fancy contraptions? And once the fruit is off the tree, it needs to be collected in something because there's a whole lot of fruit to be picked. Notice they're using wooden baskets with handles. The problem here is that they have only one free hand if they're holding a basket in the other hand. That's where these bad boys come into play. Canvas picking sacks with adjustable straps. This fellow here is using a canvas sack with adjustable straps, so he has both hands free to pick twice as fast, and since workers were often paid piecework, meaning paid by how much fruit they picked, speed was very important. Once a picking sack was full, it would be emptied into a wooden crate. Of course, with peaches being so delicate, you would have to be careful. If they were still firm enough, you could do something like this. Very gently. Let's take a look at this image one more time. Notice the barrels. Originally, apples and peaches were packed into barrels to be shipped by boat or train to places like Chicago. They were sorted by hand into these barrels. Electric-powered fruit graters came about in the early 1900s, and they greatly eased the quick preparation of fresh fruit for the market. This fruit grater was purchased in the early 1960s by the Hedig family for use at their Coloma Township farm. It's now on display as part of the Forest to Fruit Belt exhibit at the North Berrien Historical Museum. Once the picker sacks were emptied into wooden crates, those wooden crates would be loaded onto a tractor-pulled trailer to be taken to a fruit grater located in a barn or a packing shed. Here, the fruit would be dumped by hand to enter the fruit grater. The fruit would move along a conveyor belt powered by an auger system. The fruit went up the conveyor through rotating brushes which cleaned and shined the fruit to make it more appealing to buyers. As the fruit exits the brushes onto the rollers, you'll see the improvement. Very shiny apples. Next, the fruit moved along the rollers where people would stand on either side and pick out and toss away any defective fruit. The fruit then comes down this conveyor on the other side. There's an opening which gradually gets larger as the fruit descends, so the fruit will drop down into the appropriate compartment based on its size. Those compartments are padded so the fall won't damage the fruit. Now it's time to pack the fruit into bushel baskets. Bushel baskets were actually packed upside down to assist with arranging the top layer of fruit to be neat and attractive. This is known as ring facing. You'll notice that these gentlemen here are using a liner to protect the fruit on the sides and a metal facing plate to help form the shape for the basket. Once the facing plate is removed, the liner helps retain the shape for the bushel basket to be placed over top. Now notice the wire handles on the bushel basket. We'll talk more about those in a moment. Bushels could be heavy to flip, so there were bushel turning machines like the one pictured here to assist in this process. This gentleman manages to do it on his own. He's very strong. There is still a metal lid underneath to hold the apples when the bushel is turned upright. Once that lid is removed, look at how beautiful that looks. They're almost ready to be shipped. The wire handles on the baskets were handy not only for picking up the baskets, but for securing the lid as well. The metal tabs on either side of the wooden lid would slide into the wire handles to create a nice self-contained package. Now the bushels could be safely stacked and were ready for shipping. As we discussed in previous videos a little bit, farmers in Berrien County began sending fruit to Chicago as far back as the mid-1800s. These farmers organized a central market where growers and buyers could come together. From the 1930s through the 1950s, the Benton Harbor Fruit Market was the world's largest cash-to-grower produce market, meaning the farmers who grew the fruit drove their truck full of produce to the market and sold it in exchange for cash. This is how the fruit made its way to be eaten at people's kitchen tables all over the Midwest and beyond. At its height, as many as 400 trucks would wait to enter the market each day. The market's proximity to Chicago and the methods of transportation, by boat or by train, contributed to the industry's development. And with that, we conclude our fruit harvest season series. I hope that you've learned a thing or two over the course of these videos. Maybe you look at fruit a little bit differently now. In any case, I'm Peter Cook with the North Berrien Historical Museum. Thank you very much. Bye.